Okay, so I've got a lot of apples, and I want to turn some of these apples into apple pies, but I've got so many apples to process right now, I don't have time to just make one pie after the next pie, right? So I'm going to mass process these apples and turn a lot of them into apple pie filler, which can be frozen and then later used to fill apple pies. So my first step is to start peeling apples, and I want to peel and slice enough apples to make basically like a pie. I've got a recipe. It's my wife's recipe, probably my wife's mom's recipe, or maybe my wife's mom's recipe. Anyway, my wife gave me a recipe for the apple pie filler, and I'm going to follow that recipe, which means I got to peel enough apples for basically one pie, right? And then I'll add the other ingredients to it, and then I'll go on and peel some more apples, and so on and so on, and just make a whole bunch of pie filler. So first steps first. With the size of apples that I'm using, which are medium-sized apples, I'll need, Mahoney, my wife thinks I'll need maybe 8 to 10 apples. I'm shooting at least 10, right? Because apples, when they cook, they go down, right? They lose a lot of their body. So first thing, I peel the outside, then I cut it into quarters. If it was me personally, I was just making the pies only for me, I wouldn't even bother peeling it because I don't mind the peel. I don't even mind the seeds. I probably just not even take the core stuff out. So, but anyway, I'm going to take the core stuff out of this one. And for a quarter of a decent sized apple, I might cut it into 3 pieces, 3 long wedges, and throw them into my bowl, where I've got others collecting, getting ready to turn into apple pie filler. So I just work through each of those quarter slices like that. Pop, pop. Got my wedges. Take the core out. Pop, pop. Got my wedges. If you're concerned about the apple stuff getting kind of brown in there as you're peeling and cutting and all this stuff, which it will, one thing you can do is just squeeze some lemon juice on there. And lemon juice will kind of preserve it a little while, preserve the color a little while. I don't understand why anybody even bothers with that, because you know, imagine, like, apple pie is supposed to be like an old American recipe, right? So imagine these guys in New England, these old grandmas making apple pie, and where are they going to get their lemons? We didn't always have this global food trade that's going to put fresh lemons at our door. So, you know, personally, if I'm eating an apple pie, and as I'm eating the pie, the apples in it are not white, they're brown, that's how they're supposed to be, and I'm not going to care. But if you're wanting to make it, you know, pretty white and everything, and pretend like apples don't turn colors when they're exposed to oxygen, then put some lemon juice on it. And once you've peeled and got all your 8 to 10 apples, or if you're using larger apples, less, once you got enough to fill a pie with, then I'll show you the next step. Alright, now I've got my apples cut, sliced and everything. It's enough easily to make one pie, probably a little bit more. That's okay. Now I'm going to mix the stuff in with it to make it into pie filling. What I need first is 2 cups of brown sugar. Just your everyday average brown sugar. So this is 2 cups. Put that in there. And then I'm going to need a tablespoon of all-purpose flour. Your average all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon. And then I'm going to use maybe 2.5, 3 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. And then, last ingredient, ground nutmeg. That I need about a tablespoon and a half, maybe 2 tablespoons worth. There we go. So, 2 cups of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of all-purpose white flour, 3 tablespoons of ground sugar, and 1.5 to 2 of ground nutmeg. And I'm going to put all these ingredients in the description section on this video, and then you just mix this all up together. Right? Mix it all over in the apples, let the apples get all this stuff on it. Turn it all in there. Let it get all coated with the ingredients. It's not a, obviously, you know, when you're making an apple pie, it's not an exact science. Now you know these are the basic ingredients. You can fool around with them, add a little more of this, a little less of that. Depends on what kind of flavor you're into. You know, the apples, how many apples it's going to take is always going to vary for pie and that kind of thing. Depends on if you got a deep dish, depends on if you got a regular dish. All that kind of stuff goes into the decision making on the apple pie, on what you're going to do. So it's not a perfect science, and it doesn't have to be, and you don't have to have a perfect recipe, but if you figure like these ingredients for a single pie, that's pretty good. And I probably got more than enough apples here for a single pie. So now that I got that, I want to put this in the freezer, right? So this is apple pie filling, pre-made, ready to put in a pie. So I'm going to put it in a freezer until the day when I'm making dough and I'm ready to start baking the pies. So all I need is a Ziploc freezer bag, and I can start putting this stuff into the Ziploc. Fill the Ziploc freezer bag with your pie filling, and then when the day comes for making a pie, you don't have to make all the pies at the same time. Then you've already got filling, and all you got to do is make yourself some dough, which is another simple thing to do, and I'll do that on a separate video when it comes time. Right now I just need to process all my apples because I got a whole tree worth of apples and they need to be processed. So, but when it comes time, you make the dough, and you don't have to do all the apple stuff. That's already done, and it's nice and handy and convenient to already have it done. And this is a way that, like, when you see the apples go on sale, if you're buying your apples, like, first of all, these apples that I'm using are not the best apples for apple pie. The best apples are kind of more larger and crunchier red apples. But you can of course use any apple for apple pie. But say you're buying your stuff from the store and you don't have an apple tree in your backyard, then all you gotta do is wait for the big sales to come around with the apple season or what have you, and buy a bunch. Buy a bunch. Process all your apple stuff. Keep it in a freezer if you got some freezer space, and you're good to go. So I've got this. It's locked up. It's ready to go. I'm going to put it in the freezer, and I'll pull it back out and make pie with it when the time comes. And that's all it is to it. So I'll put the recipe, I'll type it in at the bottom here, but just know it doesn't have to be exact. This is just the measurements that per pie that my wife Mahoney uses, and those pies turn out good.